After the UN call for other countries to assist Korea, Norway decided to send a mobile surgical army hospital, the so-called NORMASH, and it started its operation in 1951 and ended in 1954. And over those 3 years there was a total of 623 Norwegians working there, partly medical staff, doctors and nurses, and partly army privates and also some individuals who wanted to assist. And in total they treated something like 90,000 patients. And from what I've learned, about 98% of the patients that were treated actually survived. And about 80% of them could report back to active duty after being treated at the hospital. And then after the war, there was still felt there was a need to assist Korea. So Norway, together with Sweden and Denmark, established the National Medical Center, a hospital in Dongdaemun. And this was in operation for 10 years before it was handed over to the Korean authorities. And it's still a functioning hospital today. There is an association for Norwegian veterans in Norway, and they've been quite active, and they've been organizing trips back to Korea for veterans, which have been very meaningful for them. Some of them had not been back to the country since they actually served at the NORMASH. And it's a really overwhelming experience to come back to Korea and see the development that your nation has had. There's also a newly started Norwegian-Korea Friendship Association, which is not purely for veterans, but just for anybody who's interested in promoting bilateral ties between Norway and Korea. And here in Korea, there is a peace monument commemorating the Norwegian participation at the Dongdaemun, at the Peace Museum there. As I mentioned, I'm not aware of any specific monuments in Norway, but as I said, we have the Veterans Association, and then here in Korea there is a monument at the Dongdaemun Peace Museum commemorating the Norwegian participation, and the Peace Museum also has a separate division for each country, so there are artifacts on display from the time of NORMASH. And also at the Korean War Memorial Museum, there's plans to establish a separate division for the countries contributing during the Korean War. And there's also plans to establish a separate room called the Trygve Lie room. Trygve Lie was the first Secretary General of the UN. And the room will display artifacts from his time at the UN and his contributions during the Korean War. Yeah, ties between Norway and Korea have been quite strong since the Korean War because of our cooperation. And I would say today we have very strong bilateral relations. Korea is becoming increasingly important to Norway as an export market, and you are now our 7th biggest export market in the world, ahead of both China and Japan. And it's especially in the field of shipping and shipbuilding where we have strong ties, as well as in the field of aquaculture, seafood, medical equipment and ICT. There's lots of potential for further cooperation. So this is something we're hoping to build on, and Norway will participate in the Expo in Yosu in 2012. And as you know, the theme for Expo is Living Ocean, Living Coast, and which is a very natural theme for both Norway and Korea. So we're hoping that we can showcase Norwegian expertise in this area then, and lay the groundwork for future cooperation. And also not only in the economic sphere, but also in the political sphere, Korea is becoming increasingly important to Norway. Because of your express ambition to becoming a leading player internationally, and can increase your contributions in development aid, in international peacekeeping operations, for instance, in the fight against climate change. These are all areas that are very important to Norway, and so we follow Korean developments in these areas very closely, and we're always looking for areas in which we can cooperate on practical projects. I think Norway and Korea have a lot in common, but maybe a problem is that we do not know so much about each other. So that's one of the embassy's ambitions in Korea, is to increase awareness of Norway and our relevance to Korea. So we have a lot of activities lined up for the autumn. In September, we're organizing a seminar on carbon capture and storage, together with the Presidential Committee for Green Growth and Innovation Norway. Then at the end of the year, we're hoping to organize a seminar on High North policies with your Korea Polar Research Institute. We also, in the cultural field, we have a long cooperation with the Jarzum Jazz Festival, which is held in October every year, and where Norwegian artists participate. In the spring, we had an architecture exhibition at the Hanguk University. So we're trying to increase our presence and visibility in Korea. And I would hope that more Koreans get to learn about Norway, maybe visit our country for holidays, and vice versa, because I think we have a lot in common historically, geographically, and even though we have lots of differences in terms of culture, I think we share the same enthusiasm and the same sense of fun and humor. That's my experience with Korean people.